Hi there, my name is Denny, and welcome to the Speak Dicely podcast, the show where I get together with other tabletop enthusiasts, and we speak Dicely together. As characters advance in levels in Dungeons & Dragons, eventually they get to a certain level where they can take what's known as an ability score increase, or ASI, allowing them to increase their base stats. Alternatively, a player might instead choose to take a perk that can enhance their attacks, defense, health, give them spells, or role-playing features, and some of these perks will also give a bonus to ability scores anyway. And these optional perks are referred to as Feats. And joining me for today's discussion of Feats are Cole Larson and Matt Costin. Hey there, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going today?
Pretty good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, thank you, Cole. It's been a while since Cole you've joined us. As you can see, we now have faces. Sorry to anybody who's listening to this in podcast form. You might be surprised to know we
Oh my
have...
god. Oh, my face.
The moment I said it, I was like, you know what? That is a strange sentence, isn't it?
It's all good. As long as I'm pretty enough for you, then we're all good.
Wow. I'm not here to judge. We're just here to talk about some D&D and tabletop stuff. I mean, I've never been one to be like, I've got a face for radio, okay? Here we are on the internet, making things. It's fine. But yeah, so, and Matt, it's been a while since I feel like I've talked to you, too. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Did a bunch of... when asked to come and talk about Feats, I realized I hadn't looked at Feats in quite a while, so I went back and looked through the list recently, so I've refreshed myself on the topic.
Nice. And how are things going for you guys? I mean, like, I don't want to pry or anything, but how's life going?
Very busy, all things considered, work-wise, but always can make some time to talk about D&D and all the fun stuff like that.
Yeah, I've got a nice break this week from work, so easy and relaxed for me at the moment.
Nice. And, yep, same kind of thing for me. I'm just, when I'm not working, I'm working. You know how it is. With that being said, so today we're talking about feats. So I kind of described it a little bit in the introduction there, but feats are essentially an optional mechanic that people can choose to take at certain level up points for their characters in D&D. And these things can do things such as like enhance attacks, give you different proficiencies. Yeah, there's all kinds of things that you can get with feats. And I want to know from you guys, what do you like about feats? And are you more likely to take a feat over an ability score improvement?
Very good question. Do you mind if I start on that, Matt?
Go for it.
Okay, so I find it definitely matters depending on the character that I would be playing, but I think it's more or less if I've run into the point of, oh dear, my stats are either really bad and I need to take the ASI, or I'm in a place of, okay, I'm comfortable. What fun thing can I do with adding a feat to this character? And especially I find whether it revolves around something to control the battlefield, such as Sentinel, or especially if you're a spellcaster and want to make sure that you can hold advantage with Warcaster, like, those are probably, like, my favorite go-tos, no matter which character I go for, but in terms of feats, they're like the... they're like the Italian seasoning to add onto your character's sheets for that extra dash of flavor, I find.
The Italian seasoning. Wow. Hey, welcome to level 4. Would you like some Italian seasoning with your character?
It's got all the flavor you need.
Gives a little kick and gives you a new kick.
Yeah.
Now you got 3 feats instead of 2.
Oh my gosh, a 3-foot monk.
Oh God. It's like Chuck Norris. The foot comes out of the beard.
Wow, holy, a Chuck Norris joke. When are we?
There is a feat that can kind of let you do that.
Yeah.
So. Wait, which one?
Telekinesis gives you an invisible extra hand.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, I haven't really read through a lot of the new ones, or at least they haven't stuck in my head as much. But Yeah. So Matt, what's your take on that question?
To be perfectly honest, I rarely take a feat early on in the game unless the DM lets me start with one.
Mm.
Um, I usually will take the ability score improvement over it, early game at least. At higher levels or after we've been playing for a little bit, I usually use feats to kind of shore up what our party's lacking
Mm.
or what a character's lacking. Like we had one game we ran where we kept getting attacked by things that had us do wisdom saves, and all of us had garbage wisdom. So I took a feat that shored up my wisdom, gave me proficiency in wisdom saves, just because if we needed somebody to not get like stunned, mind controlled, that kind of thing, so they could snap the others out of it. Um, it was just a huge problem for like 3 sessions in a row. So luckily, when we got to a level up, I'm like, oh, that was my chance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I find I like grabbing a feat to add some more utility to my character, or we're gonna do a little bit later, but you can kind of take the best part of a class without multi-classing with some of your feats.
Mm.
So it can be helpful that way too.
Oh yeah. And I feel like I'm on a bit of a different page where it's like every time there's an ability score increase opportunity, I'm probably going to take a feat. And if it's like the nice thing about ability score increases is you can do 1 point to 2 different abilities or 2 to 1. So you pretty much guarantee a modifier increase in one ability score if you go with that option. But more often than not, I find I'll go, okay, what are my odd ability scores? And what are the feats that give me a +1 to that ability score as well as something else?
Yeah, it really is dependent on what my stats are when I come to an ability score.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I totally get what you're saying, Tenny, because like that's the same case for me. It's like, oh, if I have an odd number and then I can also get this extra special thing for my character to do, it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to take the special thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I do agree, and like there are that I feel like is like my general option. But hey, I mean, sometimes you really gotta boost an ability score, or you just ignore the ability score entirely and go, hey, we have no healer. I better take the healer feat this level up, which has I love that feat now.
It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple like that which are super useful. But I find the ones I'm more likely to take on a level up is a feat that has a stat boost associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, like, I love the utility that feats give you and like the weird things you can do with them. But if I'm just taking feats that don't boost my stats, it's a rare that you get the chance to increase your stats in the game. Whereas, like, weird utility, you can get them from like magic items and stuff like that sometimes, or the equipment you pick up. So it's so hard for me to not just boost my stats. Because, like, yeah, bumping up my wisdom by 1 gives a bonus to so many things in the game. Gives bonus to any wisdom check, wisdom save, any ability I have that uses wisdom. Like my perception, my ability to see if something's going to kill me or not. It's like so hard to not take that kind of a boost over some fun utility from a feat.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, the great thing about feats is that like they give you things that you just lacked, right? It's an odd thing to try and describe feats because it's just like, yeah, it just gives you passive abilities or even active abilities. It just gives you more abilities.
Yeah, ones that you probably couldn't get normally throughout your like normal level progression, and like getting that kind of thing can almost make or quote unquote break a character to the point of like, oh no, they're gonna get into a fight and there's almost nothing I can do. I've run into a situation particularly for like I think it's observant. Where
Yes.
you get the ability to not only increase your like perception and your passive perception, but it's literally you can't be surprised. So if you're actually on watch and like say there's a little what's the word, like a little band of goblins that come into the camp to try and sneak up on you, it's like you'll know they're there, but your party might not until you say something. Just like, oh, our healer hasn't been healing me. Should I wake the party right now? Thankfully, it never got to that situation. I'm like, no, I need to take care of my party. But the fact that feats can give you those kind of powers that you definitely wouldn't get unless if you took like a certain path, depending on your class. It's been, why wouldn't you take it?
You know what? That's a great point you brought up there. Like, if you're looking to tell a certain type of story with a character, and then you go, but it lacks this thing, like you could probably find a feat that helps flesh out that character a lot more. Or like I what I did with one of my characters was I created a feat. I had been playing a Minotaur cleric, and Cole, I guess you would have heard about this guy because we did the clerics
I'm familiar
episode.
with that guy.
Yeah. And I was just like, there are so many races in D&D where the natural weapons they have are just so underwhelming. And I was like, but I really just want to use this Minotaur's horns like the entire campaign. So what I did was I collaborated with our DM and was like, I'm going to take a feat, but I'm dedicating it to upgrading my Minotaur horn.
Okay.
Yeah, when you described your the way that it did something akin to elemental damage with your horns in addition, right?
Yeah, because I was like a nature cleric, so it was like it makes the feat essentially made the horns magical. They could be used as a weapon, so it kind of played into the cleric's like you could use it, or if you make a weapon attack, you can apply a certain elemental damage at 8th level. I was like, well, now the horns qualify for that, and I think there was an additional like dash improvement I gave it or something, but anyway, or maybe it was a damage increase. That might have been what it was. But yeah, so I was just like, I want better use out of these hordes, and I kind of want them to progress in level like the rest of us are.
And if we're following like rule of cool stuff, like how cool is that for your nature cleric to be able to like add that type of elemental fury with their attacks in the horns? Like, you could even, like, I could see it almost like if someone did, like, a character portrait for your character in, like, a moment of attacking or goring an enemy, and they're just, like, on fire. Like, it's cool. Why not take that? So, the fact that your GM and you collaborated to make a custom feat, I mean, as long as it is approved, then I don't see the harm.
If you are someone who likes doing like natural weapons, but your GM doesn't let you homebrew your own feats, the new ones in Tash's Cauldron of Everything, the ones that are for specific damage types, work really well for unarmored or unarmed stuff.
Oh.
Like, for example, your Minotaur's horns, they're piercing damage, right?
Yeah.
So there is one called Piercer for it's whenever you use an attack, hit a creature with an attack that does piercing damage. Doesn't have to be a weapon, so it can be horns, teeth, whatever. It lets you re-roll damage dice, so when you crit, you get to add additional damage dice. So,
okay, so they must have gotten feedback about this sort of thing before, because that sounds like that's a pretty good way to cover that kind of thing.
Yeah. They also have stuff for slashing and bludgeoning. So whichever kind of unarmed strike you do, I think you can use either one of those, or the corresponding one for it.
Yeah, those new ones that Tasha's Cauldron came out with, especially those for like, especially with specific damage type, like, it's very interesting that it came to that point. And they probably received enough feedback to be like, oh, why didn't we have this before? It's a good time to put this in for those players that might need that kind of thing. In terms of, like, I can't imagine, like, I can't name all of them off the top of my head for, like, the newest ones that were released, but I'm pretty sure the fact that alone that Wizards of the Coast are listening to people when they say, hey, we want to add these new feats, what do you guys think about this idea for this type of thing? And they're like, okay, let's workshop it. Because they're not just going to be like, no, this is what we created and this is what we're sticking with.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about that kind of mentality, too, is it's like, that's clearly what, like, a DM would do. So it's like, well, good on you, Wizards of the Coast, for, you know, being the DM of your company.
Yeah.
Like, listening to what the players want.
A lot of people say, I've noticed for me with feats, I take a lot more when I play a martial class, because I also play martial classes a lot. but they do a good job because people tend to say like, "Oh, martial class, it's boring, it's underpowered, it's this and that." There are a ton of feats to give you weird, creative ways to use your weapons. Like, there's obviously feats for spellcasters and a fair amount of good ones for them,
Hmm.
but like some of the most powerful feats in this work more for martial classes than for anything else, and it really helps them like hold their own in a fight with spellcasters.
Oh yeah. Wasn't there one specifically for that type of like for Mage Slayer, like
Yeah.
specifically for marshals to take on the spellcasters and be like, okay, you want to use your magic on me? Now I come stab you now.
Yep. Yeah. If you're playing a monk, that's an amazing one to take as Mage Slayer.
Mm.
You will like monks in high levels are already great at dealing with spellcasters, and then Mage Slayer makes it so that you can pretty much guarantee you're stopping whatever spellcaster you're fighting.
And that's just a great flavor thing too. It's like no matter what class you choose, it's like in my background I hunted down wizards and I despise magic and am completely against it. And it's like, yeah, take that feat at some point because that's going to be real nice for your story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've also used feats to kind of play multiple subclasses within the same class. I have a character who is a mix of barbarian and fighter, and
Oh yeah.
then he's an Echo Knight fighter. And
Oh
then I also
jeez.
took, yeah, then I also took feats that gave him Battle Master dice and maneuvers, so he can do Battle Master stuff, Echo Knight stuff, and barbarian stuff. So
Oh my god. Yeah, that
I'm
just hearing that immediately, I'm getting like the equivalent of like flashbacks of the damage that fighters can just do, especially with womboing it with barbarian abilities. That sounds
yep.
terrifying.
I also am debating taking. There's a feat that gives you expertise, like the rogue gets.
Oh my god.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
debating using that to get expertise on athletics,
Oh no.
because that way you have advantage and expertise on any athletics check while you're raging. So you will basically guarantee you win whatever grapple check you try and do.
Oh yeah.
You know what? I'm glad that they made a feat for that kind of thing because I feel like support for skills was very underwhelming up until that point. It's like, sure, you had like in Xanathar's guide, I think it was the prodigy feat, which gave you some languages and skills,
Yeah.
but it's like that was
Mm-hmm.
specific to humans and half elves, I believe. So,
I think they fixed that.
I mean,
I
they
think
probably
yeah.
did, but
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, it's still half elf, half orc, or human.
yeah,
Oh okay.
right. But I mean, this feat that you guys are talking about from Tasha's is probably their kind of like, well, we should probably make something that's a bit more available to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few different ones that'll give you some different combination of you can get expertise or additional skills or different languages, that kind of stuff. So you can really like pick the one that works best for you or what you need. Like as a rogue, if you need more skills so that when you gain expertise, you can get expertise in something different. You can use the skilled one to get those extra skills. Like, yeah, it is a bunch of it really opens up your character a lot, the feats. It
Mhm.
can lead to some really broken characters if you're not careful.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I often use feats for is especially if I'm playing like a martial class, because I'm very much a spellcaster at heart. Um I might end up taking like one of the feats that like kind of branches you into spellcasting, even if it's like you get one attack cantrip and a spell slot you can use once per day or whatever. Like it's just and it's a nice storytelling too, where it's like magic exists and my character didn't know it, but now they're learning, and it's like, ooh, that's kind of a doorway into multi-classing that makes sense story wise.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that.
And
Yeah.
I will probably multi-class into a spellcaster because I just can't stay away.
I mean,
I'm the
magic.
same with martial stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Playing a pure spellcaster build, not for me. Can I be a spellcaster and also hold a sword? Yes.
so Cole, what kind of feats do you gravitate toward, Cole?
Oh dear. Again, I would say again at the first point is that like it depends on what type of character I'm playing, and especially if that revolves around whether I'm martial, whether I'm going spellcasting, or whether I'm mixing both. And I believe Matt said a big thing about feats is that you can take them almost tactically in a way, so that way if there are any like shortcomings for a party, like say a lot of the spellcasters have lower AC, then there are ways for them in particular to boost that, like whether they're medium armor master or light armor master, like they can take these other abilities to help boost that, so that way they're not especially easy to hit when they especially face characters that are either I don't know, I imagine like CR 8 or above, because their attack bonus is scary alone. So it's, I would say for me, at least in terms of the type of characters I play, because I gravitate also towards the martial classes like Matt. I take the ones that allow me to control the battlefield a little bit more. As said, like Sentinel works so well for me because I know that I get into the fray. And if someone's going to try and back away from me, whether they're low HP and they're going to flee, or if they're going to try and target somebody else in my party that happens to be right next to me, I'm like, hey, I'm not done with you. Come here. It's I love that idea of essentially being able to control where certain enemies go, and especially if they're trying to flee. Think of it tactically, like you say you have your evil king, and he's been infused with enough magical energy that he's going to turn into a demon or something, and then he tries to go back to the magic circle for his final ritual. My character happens to be there, and I'm just kind of like, you really want to get away? Hold on a minute. Just stick whatever weapon I have like into the ground, pinning his cape, and he just has like the Incredibles moment. Just like I can't go to the magic circle. Like nothing better to tell a story than being able to add that kind of flavor when you do attacks to the enemy.
Yeah, that was a very good answer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've kind of started rolling into the questions here, but we'll bring us to the next question right after we take a quick break here. When we come back, I'm gonna ask these guys what some of their favorite feats and least favorite feats are. So we'll see y'all in a few. You stay tuned. Be right back. Hi there. Do you have a podcast you'd like to promote? How about sponsoring an episode of the Speak Dicely podcast? If you'd like to get in touch with me about including an ad during one of our episodes, contact Denny at dicelychannel@gmail.com. Now, back to the podcast. And hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the Speak Dicely podcast. I'm here with Matt Costin and Cole Larson, and we're talking about feats. And where we had left off, I gotta ask you guys, what are some of your favorite feats?
How about you start this one, Matt? I'm curious to hear
Sounds
yours.
good. I mean, honestly, everything you were saying about Sentinel is the same for me. That is probably, I play a lot of martial classes, a lot of melee classes. And as long as you are the only person in your party that's taken Sentinel, it's an amazing feat. It
Could
gives
you describe
so much.
Yeah, just describe this feat for us, for those who don't know.
So Sentinel gives you a couple bonus things. Sentinel lets you do opportunity attacks more frequently, essentially. It lets you take an opportunity attack on an enemy that's within 5 feet of you if it attacks a different person other than you. The person it's attacking doesn't have to be within 5 feet of you. So if you walk up to an archer and they shoot at someone else, you can hit them.
The other person has to not have the Sentinel feat as well, right?
Exactly. That's the thing.
Sentinel
if they attack anyone else with Sentinel,
out. Yeah.
For some reason, if you're both looking out, then it doesn't matter. On top of that, when you hit with an opportunity attack of any kind, the opponent's speed is dropped to 0. This is, again, very good for stopping an enemy from getting away from you if they're trying to run. Helps you keep guys within melee range. Helps you punish people for attacking anyone but you. So if you're playing like a bodyguard type of character, it's really good for getting like in the way.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that,
yeah.
it combos really
Go ahead,
nicely
Matt.
with a bunch of abilities.
The biggest one with Sentinel, especially for the people that know about the mechanic of disengaging, that doesn't matter if the opponent disengages. You can still hit them and use your reaction to hit them and stop them. It's like, oh, you're really trying to disengage? No, stop it.
It's so
like,
brutal.
That alone is huge.
Yeah, two classes that really benefit from Sentinel are the Rogue. If you're ever playing a Rogue or melee Rogue, it's really good because it lets you get a sneak attack on enemies' turns. If you can hit them with that opportunity attack, that's the first damage on a turn, so it can proc your sneak attack damage.
Oh yeah, you're right. Oh god, I forgot
on top
about
of that, Battle Master is pretty broken with Sentinel, to be perfectly honest. The best thing about Sentinel dropping the opponent to 0 speed, if you combine that with any attack that knocks them prone, they can't get up for a while. You've got an enemy who's now stuck on the ground with no way to get up, no matter what they do. And that's everyone gets advantage for a round of the guy who tried to walk away from you is now flat on his back and getting the shit kicked out of him. You can also combine Sentinel with some other Battle Master dice or maneuvers that basically penalize them for attacking you or not attacking you, or like basically anything they do, you can retaliate. It makes for a very hard person to deal with. It's just super useful. Yeah. And on a different note, I also really like Observant, which is another like one of those very powerful ones, but not for the observation part. The increase to your passive perception is really nice, especially if you aren't a character that spec'd into wisdom, so you don't have good perception. It lets you kind of just keep up. But what I really like is it gives you the ability to read lips.
Oh my god, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, which is a lot of fun because we've used it in times where we're trying to get information out of somebody at a bar. So instead of trying to like eavesdrop in on it or like join in the conversation or something, we just sat at the other side of the bar, had some drinks, and I just sat there with a notebook and just wrote down what he was saying because I could read his lips. It was a nice, easy way to kind of it's good for like espionage style stuff. Pairs
absolutely.
Really, really nicely with another feat, which is super situational. Keen Mind.
Oh, gee, yeah.
Yeah, Keen Mind lets you remember anything you have read or like heard or seen within the last month.
Yeah, within the last month.
Yeah.
Just literally, hey DM,
I
me as the player doesn't remember, but can you please tell me what my character remembers because they have keen mind.
Exactly. Pair that with the ability to read lips, and you remember exactly what you saw for the next month. You know exactly what those people were talking about.
Oh yeah,
it's great.
DM counters by including month-long downtime every once in a while.
That's fair. That would be the way to mitigate that.
Yeah. That one's really handy for, what did the quest giver tell us we had to find again? Was it the red gem or the blue gem? I don't remember.
Yeah.
So it's good for that.
Yeah, the shore up my note-taking feat.
Yeah, literally. In terms of with the rest of your question, though, Teni, the two other ones, I mentioned the first one briefly for when we're getting into the spellcasters, aside from the martial classes. Warcaster is brilliant for those type of like spell adept fighters, or even just spellcasters in general, because not only does it give you advantage to your concentration checks, but it also gives you the ability to, when in place of an opportunity attack, you could cast a spell that it has a casting time of 1 action, if I recall. So say like back with like sadly Sentinel and Warcaster do not pair, but at the same time, if I think we were actually having this conversation before, Teni, about like comboing with certain like spells if it was like a trigger as a melee attack.
Yes. We had such conversations in the Dicely DnD Discord. Go hang out in our Discord group.
Yeah, we always bring up those fun conversations. It's always fun to be like, oh, will this actually work? But yeah, no, with Warcaster, just if you're playing that type of class that wants to make sure, if you're holding up a buff for your entire squad, and say like the big bad recognizes you as the threat and they hits you, you have at least a double chance to make sure that you're going to keep that spell going. Absolutely love that feat. And the last one that I think is a favorite that is borderline broken, Lucky.
Ah, yes.
Lucky is, I'm pretty sure, next to the other DMs out there, probably are like, there's a reason why I don't like that one. For those that don't know it, Lucky is literally taking the halflings' racial ability of re-rolling rolls, but you get to do it 3 times, and you can have it in place of an ability check, a save, an attack, and even the borderline broken part about it is like you can influence an enemy's attack against you to miss.
Yeah. I always forget about Lucky because my DMs usually ban it.
Yeah, exactly. It's borderline far too good of a feat, and it makes sense why some DMs probably don't use such a thing.
Yeah.
Teni, you look like you're lost in thoughts. What's on your mind?
I completely forgot about Lucky's ability to influence somebody else, and I just had to look at it. I was like, oh my god. You know, I've never banned Lucky at any of my tables. It just seems that all the players I've had have just been like, you know what? I'm too good for this. And so nobody takes it out of principle anymore. Like, I know in the very first 5e game I ran, my buddy Jason took it, and I thought it was hilarious. I think it's a great feat. I mean, like, so much is left up to chance in D&D. If you just have a character who's got a trait that is lucky, and you just take that feat, I mean, that's a fun character trait. They just seem to stumble their way through everything. Like, if I played a Way of the Drunken Monk, I would totally give them Lucky, because that just feels like it would be so good.
Mm-hmm.
As a DM, I really don't like Lucky. It's a fun one for the player who has Lucky, and sometimes for the people around them, but it's really frustrating for the DM to play with someone who has Lucky. Because essentially it allows them to control the narrative whenever they want, most of the time. It's like, it lets them like, oh, your enemy does something. No, they don't. It's like, oh, you didn't make it. So no, I did make it. I changed my mind. Like, it's just really kind of annoying.
It does still depend on the dice. It does still depend on the dice.
Exactly.
But having advantage basically on whatever.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
I would put this akin to a DM who hands out inspiration widely like I do. I pretty much give all of my players Lucky if they're really good role players. So I guess I'm not surprised I have no problem with Lucky as a DM.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
But also that's probably why they don't take Lucky, because they're like, oh, we're just going to get inspiration anyway, because we're really good at what we do.
Well, the thing, I'm fine with that, like, with inspiration, you're giving that to everybody. But if everyone doesn't have Lucky, it means you've got one person who has much more control over the story than everyone else.
Also, that's not entirely true. You don't have to give inspiration to everybody.
I know. I'm just saying everyone has that opportunity.
Gotcha.
If everyone doesn't take Lucky, then only one person has that opportunity.
Yes.
Yes.
I understand it. I disagree with it, but I understand.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's.
Also, I wanted to go back on Warcaster there too. I think one of the things I love about that feat, as a cleric again, this totally makes sense. Like, you can have something in both of your hands and still do the somatic and material components for your spells. It's like, I can be a weapon and shield wielding cleric and still actually cast magic without having to sacrifice my weapon.
Oh yeah, it's such a beautiful thing when you can basically go into the fray with the martial classes and be like that sentinel, like be that borderline person. Like you can be the tank, you can be so many things, and when you're able to hit and do spells as well, even though your hands are full, why the hell not?
Yeah, and I think in terms of one of my favorite feats, as you guys probably guessed, Magic Initiate. That was basically describing that is what I was describing earlier. It's like you choose a first level spell you choose a spell casting class, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Sorcerer, Warlock, or Wizard, and then choose a spell from their list. You can cast it at its lowest level, and you can do it once per day. And then, do you not get a feat or a cantrip with that? That might be another one. But anyway, you get to dip into this. This is essentially you get to multi-class without multi-classing.
Yeah.
A little.
There's actually something for an upcoming character that I'm doing, which is a very interesting like caster paladin. But I'm going to actually take Magic Initiate for Wizard when I get the chance to get access to Shield, and nice. When that's there, and I already have Warcaster, I'm set. Like I'm already going to build up my already tremendously high AC. Thanks, heavy armor. But then adding that as at least that one clutch moment, when you can also then deal out smites. It's perfect. Like, Magic Initiate is basically, oh, you want to do some magic with your character? There are the options. Please choose from the list.
And I think I once did it to take a druid spell, and the one I took was Goodberry. Never had to worry about party food again, because you only need to cast Goodberry once per day, and, well, lo and behold, that's what the feat does.
Yeah. Magic Initiate's also great if you're playing an Eldritch Knight and want to get around their spell picking limitations or spell school limitations. Let you grab a couple extra things. Yeah, they're tanky as shit when they're built right. So you can make a monster of a.
I'm currently playing an Eldritch Knight right now, and I've been in the point where I've been more focused on the story than like building the character once I reach something, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can take feats and other things. Like, what should I take to like make this one completely like a menace on the battlefield? So we might have to have a conversation about that later, Matt. We can discuss about that on the Discord. That'll be fun. Now, as the second part of this one, you wanted to talk about least favorite, right?
Now, hold on. Before we get to that, I have one more I want to throw out for a feat that I love. One more feat I love, and this is just kind of shoring up ability scores kind of thing. Resilient. You choose one of your ability scores, you add 1 to your ability score, so this is, again, like something I'd probably do for one of my odd ability scores, but then you also get proficiency in saving throws with that ability score. It's like,
that's what it is.
How great is it to be defensive?
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about before with the wisdom saves. We were dealing with creatures that basically had mind control abilities. So like Mind Flare. I don't know if it was Mind Flare. Something that could charm
I believe they have that
person.
option, but yeah. Oh, geez, yeah. All those charm abilities.
And we kept failing constantly.
Oh, yeah.
So I took that specifically to stop getting charmed.
I think even I took that in the same campaign. Like, we were just like, we gotta stop getting charmed. And then Dallas's character is like, I don't know, guys. I think it's fun stabbing my friends.
I mean, if that's what you want to do during the campaign, there have been multiple points where Resilient could have come up for my player group, so that way we don't actually get taken over or get completely sucked into one of those mirror spaces. Whatever that magic item is that, like, it's basically, think like extra dimensional prison or something like that, and you get stuck in that mirror. And I played a character that was a blood hunter of all characters, and my charisma was terrible. It was in the negatives. I had no save whatsoever with it, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm going in a mirror now. Bye.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. My character was trapped for, like, 50 years and then came to, like, a one-shot later on and be like, hey, welcome to the world that you thought you knew. Like, what? So just imagine if resilience were a thing, and it's like, okay, now I have a better chance to not get stuck in a mirror.
All right. So yeah, let's move on to talk about some of our least favorite feats. It sounds like, Cole, you have something in mind already.
I do. In terms of least favorite, it's more so that I don't know how to describe. There was one particular feat that I think, it's specifically the actor feat. Like, while it is built on good intentions, isn't being a bard already what you need? I don't know. I find that when they're trying to give like these extra options, if the ability is situational, sometimes I'm like, you know what, I'm probably going to pick something else that I'm probably going to rely on a bit more. And I mean, I'm just going to look it up here because I do not remember how it goes, but
Yeah, so it's like increase your charisma by 1. You have advantage on charisma deception and performance checks when trying to pass yourself off as somebody else. And you can mimic the speech of another person or the sounds made by other creatures, but you must have had spent at least a minute like listening to them talk or make the sounds. And then a successful wisdom insight check contested by your deception allows the listener to determine if it's fake. I agree. This is very underwhelming.
I would say it's actually amazing if you're a warlock.
Yeah.
So warlocks
because of Mask of Many Faces,
exactly.
Right?
The warlock gets the ability to cast disguise self at will. That doesn't change your voice, your knowledge of the person you're pretending to be. So having the ability to kind of imitate that person better any chance you get is great. Because like this right now is taking a bunch of stuff from a 3rd level rogue. One of the subclasses gets a bunch of stuff like this.
Yes, I'm pretty sure it's the assassin rogue, because essentially, eventually, they get that ability to become a different person already, based off of like, you know, a bit of time and a bit of money to create their own persona, and they truly can be anybody that they want to be. So
yeah,
I don't know.
This is also partially a mastermind rogue, who one of their abilities is they get the ability to mimic, as long as they've heard someone talk in this dialect for a minute, they can mimic local like cadence and local like accents and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so they can kind of blend into a locale.
Yeah. So this could give anyone who's not spec'd into that specific rogue that ability. It's like, yeah, that's the biggest downside I find with feats in general is there's a lot of them that are very situational.
Yeah.
So they're not picked often. There are some that are very generically good in many situations, and some that are helpful in one very specific situation.
Yeah.
Otherwise, actually, go ahead, Denny.
I was just going to say, and sometimes there'll be feats that kind of like step on the toes of a class ability. Like if you were a mastermind rogue, for example, I feel like someone would have trouble justifying taking that feat because they already get one of the abilities, so to say, from their class, kind of.
Yeah.
So it's like, am I going to take this feat just to have a +1 to charisma and advantage on charisma deception and performance checks? I mean, it very well might still be worth it, but it's a little harder of a debate to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as I'm looking at the list of some of the other ones here, I'm going to see if I can find the one. There's one other one that's...
Do you have a description of kind of like what it does?
It's been a bit, so I'm not entirely sure. Oh yeah, no, here we go. The mobile feat. Like as much as
you're not a fan of mobile,
I can understand why.
It's in situations where I haven't, like I've either had some sort of class ability or something else to kind of mitigate that factor, or even I'm pretty sure mobile. What's the word? Isn't there like literally a magic item that can do most of this kind of thing already?
Right.
I don't know. Maybe that's why mobile to me is, you would want it to work. You would want it to be this really good ability to help make a character exceptionally like mobile on the battlefield. But then it's just kind of, I don't know. It's kind of like when you drink a LaCroix when you thought you were going to have like an orange soda. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that. Like you get like the flat essence. It's like, oh, I wasn't expecting this. Oh.
That's funny. So to describe this feat, it increases movement speed by 10 feet for the character. You can use the dash action. When you use the dash action, you ignore difficult terrain. It doesn't cost you extra movement. And when you make a melee attack against a creature, you don't provoke opportunity attacks from that creature for the rest of the turn, whether you hit or not. Again, this is stepping on the toes of the swashbuckler. Because they have that last ability themselves.
Yeah. See, the thing with mobile, though, is it is the best thing ever for a rogue to take.
Oh, absolutely.
it leads to like mobile in its intended purpose. Your ability to essentially get around the battlefield quickly can be very useful for a party dynamic, but can also be very frustrating for one. Like I personally, I love mobile. I take it a lot of the time because I tend to play guys who benefit about like battlefield control, so moving around really nicely. But like I've seen it used as a rogue where you basically just use another party member as bait because all you do is you walk in, hit an enemy, and run 50 feet away. And then you do that every turn you attack. And you basically leave your friends alone to take all the brunts of the retaliation from whatever you're hitting because they're stuck near this creature that you can just hit and hide.
I mean,
Like
to be
it's
fair,
really good, but
that isn't that a rogue's job though?
Yeah. I mean, in a way, absolutely. And you know what? Like, I'm looking over it. It has other abilities. Like, the final one about, like, you don't provoke opportunity attacks from the creature for the rest of the turns. Like, yeah, like, you essentially make sure that you can hit them and then be like, okay, bye. I mean, it's...
You don't even have to hit. You just have to attack.
That's true. Yeah. This is also a beautiful ability for a monk.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it is.
I would say if you're ever playing a monk, this is almost a mandatory feat to take because monks' big thing is their key points run out, and that's kind of how they do most of their stuff. And using this or having this feat means you never need to spend your key points to disengage because that's one of the options you have for it.
Right, the step of the wind ability.
Yeah, because 90% of a monk's abilities proc off of attacking on their turn. So this gives you even more utility off of that attack.
Yeah. So. And as said, like, it's not that, like, mobile is my least favorite. I'm sure there's another one on the list that I'll probably find at some point, but it's more so as long as it benefits the character in, like, these kind of ways, then it's more so if I don't use it, it probably means that it's not the best fit for my character at this time when I'm probably going to focus on something else.
And I mean, I'm sure, like, we'll all do this too. Like, we'll be like, this is my least favorite feat, and then the rest of us will go, well, this is why it's actually good. And I mean, we shouldn't be surprised by this. This is why we love talking about this kind of thing.
The ones I'm about to list for least favorite are definitely in that category.
Come on, let's rip them apart.
The ones I really don't like are some of the best feats in the game, to be perfectly honest.
You know what?
Things like
I can
Great Weapon Master.
Yes,
is one
Great
I
Weapon
hate.
Master. Okay.
That one, and basically any one of those ones that lets you drop your to hit by 5 to do 10 extra damage
in order to do more damage.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So sharpshooter as well.
Sharpshooter as well.
Yeah, sharpshooter.
Because those ones are so frustrating from like a party build setup where it's like, all right, you've now completely broken the I don't know, damage balancing is not the best way to put it, but it's just you can very easily make it so that -5 to your hit doesn't matter very much. It's just free damage to make a character who already, usually you take it off someone who is like a fighter who already gets a lot of attacks, and now they're doing all those attacks and doing crazy damage. It can really just break encounters. It makes it a lot harder to balance those.
You know, those feats, Great Weapon Master and Sharpshooter, I agree in a sense. I did play my my Gunslinger with Sharpshooter, but I do agree. What those feats do is they kind of turn D&D into, it's a tabletop role-playing game, but having those feats on your characters really puts emphasis on the game aspect. It's like you are gaming, and you're, yeah. But that being said, as a player, it just feels so damn tasty to just get those hits.
Yes, it's very true. And plus, if you have really good party composition, that's even if it would cause the attack to miss by taking that -5, at some point you have say even the War Cleric have their ability to give +10 to that. It's it's fine. You will most likely hit now, so don't worry about it.
It's great for paladins. I forget, Paladin of Conquest, I think it's the same thing. They can just add 10 to a hit. And I just find those ones really give the opportunity for people who are like bad power gamers or that kind of thing. The ones who
break the math. I make math do my will.
It's just a nice tool for them to get around to just make broken characters.
Yeah.
Similarly, I don't like it's one I take whenever I play a ranged character, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
like that it exists. Is the I think it's Crossbow Expert,
Oh yeah.
the one that lets you not have disadvantage for attacking with ranged at melee.
Mhm.
Yes. Well,
Um,
I mean, okay, interesting. Go on.
for the same kind of reasons where it really just like it makes it so you at no point ever need like it makes a melee character pointless. If you're ranged characters who already have like a lot of advantages in that they can attack from a distance, they usually do more damage. But the trade-off to that usually is once you get within melee range, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So like for example, those ones it leads to a good party dynamic where you might need your other characters to come in and get you out of that situation or distract the enemies so you can slip away. But when you can just shoot your crossbow at point blank range with no downsides, or like your longbow, like what's the what's the harm in that? You've
Right.
it eliminates all downsides of using a ranged weapon, basically, or ranged spell, or whatever your character build is. So it's like it's very good for any
It,
ranged player to have. But I just
yes.
find it's like cheating's not the right word, but like it just cheapens it kind of. It makes it so like it removes game mechanics. Is
No,
what
I
it
hear
does.
that. It's so fascinating with Crossbow Expert because I'm pretty sure I ran into at least one incident where I was playing what I want to call the Field Medic Rogue. And that's the thief rogue that has the healer ability, but then they also have Crossbow Expert, so that way if someone does get in close, essentially imagine it as like someone's trying to get the target that's on the ground. They just pull out like their hand crossbow, and they don't even have to worry about loading the thing. It's just you now have essentially a little Nerf gun with
Yep.
attacking the dart. Just be like, get away!
Yeah, no, it's really good. Like
Yeah,
it's
it's very good.
yeah.
And I see why you're saying like it's your least favorite because it's like essentially eliminates like the it makes a ranged character not be have to think, oh, I need to get away now, you know.
Yeah. I find like it I guess the ones I don't like tend to be the ones that kind of make combat trivial
Okay.
or make combat boring for me. Like ones that increase your damage output really just mean like, okay, let's just speed through this fight. It's going to end in a few turns because this guy can now do absurd damage. So we'll
Mm.
just hurry through. Or like, oh, positioning on the battlefield no longer matters. Like we could be fighting in a tiny room. It's okay to be your long range sniper because you can snipe at point blank. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I tend to not like the feats that eliminate the like interesting parts of combat for me.
Fair.
Yeah.
Do you have any other ones you hate, or shall I go on to mine?
No, sorry, that's it for me.
Sorry, I
Okay.
shouldn't say hate, but are your least
Yeah.
favorite.
Mm.
All right. The first one I'm going to present is Dungeon Delver. This is one I have never taken. I have never seen anybody take, and it just feels like these are like it gives you things that I feel like everyone is just totally fine being like, I just roll the regular perception or investigation, and I deal with the situation as a normal person instead of being an expert. So what this feat is essentially it makes you an expert in terms of traps and secret doors. Like you have advantage on perception and investigation to detect secret doors. You have advantage on saving throws made to avoid or resist traps, which this is probably the best part of that. You have resistance to the damage dealt by traps. Actually, that's pretty good too. And traveling at a fast pace doesn't impose the normal -5 penalty on your passive perceptions. So the things you get for traps, it's decent. But how many of us, at least in games I've been playing, I don't find traps are something that are commonly, or at least used enough to warrant taking a feat over it. Unless you're playing a game that is very much dungeon to dungeon to dungeon adventure. It's just too situational. And I love playing campaigns that are very roleplay based, and we're not spending all of our time in a dungeon. So this one is one I pass on.
Yeah, if I can make a comment on that, like I'm pretty sure you hit the nail on the head. It is very situational to the point of like, if you're going in a campaign that's exclusively dungeons and you're going like raiding a bunch of these tombs in order to get something, and you want to make sure that you essentially have like the Indiana Jones of the party, like then it makes sense for someone to take that. But most of the time, are you going to be in a dungeon for like that it would warrant such a thing? It's a very like, we are relying heavily on the dungeons portion of Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah. But if you're not there, then it's like, okay, well, now we're out in the sun, and now I have nothing to do with my life.
Yeah.
There are good benefits to it, because I think the thing that we're finding as we're discussing it between us is that there are benefits to these feats, and there are situations where they could apply to someone, but again, that's a situational and taste thing, especially for the player, because if they want to take this and have them be exclusively good at this thing, then they can go down that route if they please. But that's where they have to consider, oh yeah, I only have so many ASI level up as part of my path, so maybe I can't take this one, unless if there's a feature with the DM that allows you to learn feats in a different way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For me, like this one, Dungeon Delver, kind of falls into the grouping of feats where I can't say I don't like them, because I've never, like, no one ever uses them, but they're situational. They're not something that comes up a lot. Like, Dungeon Delver is great if you are in a party. Like, this would be one I'd take later on. If I'm in a party where we're doing a lot of dungeons and we don't have a rogue or like someone who's good at traps, I'd take this after a little while, being like, my character's like, okay, we've had a few issues, I've studied up on it, I think I'm ready for the next one. Or like, if I'm a low wisdom character, this gives me a chance to spot traps in a dungeon instead of the fact that I know I'm going to blindly walk into every trap in the dungeon. Like, yeah, this is one of those ones that's very situational, so I can't say like, I don't like this one because I never use it, because there's nothing bad about it to me. It's just not something I would need to take until that time where, yeah, I need to take it because I've died from a spike pit 6 times.
You know what?
Like,
now that I say this, like, Matt, the campaign that I was playing with you and Logan was DMing, I was playing an archaeologist. You know what? This would have been a really smart feat for my character to have, because they spent time in tombs and ruins. Well, oh well. I'm going to have to challenge myself to take that feat onto a character at some point.
There you go.
The second feat I'm going to add to my least favorite list is Weapon Master. It just feels so boring. It's... You get +1 to either strength or dexterity, make that choice, and then you get 4 additional weapon proficiency. Like, maybe you found like a magical battle axe and you're a wizard, and everybody else is like, no, we don't need it, I've already got a cool weapon. And you're like, well, I'm going to take a feat to get proficiency in a battle axe, I guess, so I can use.
Yeah, that's the only time I could find this useful, is if you're a spellcaster who doesn't have weapon proficiencies and you find a cool magic weapon. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't see any reason to ever take this.
Yeah, plus I'm sure a lot of the martial classes already have proficiency in all weapons, so it's like, okay, why do I need the... Unless if it's maybe an exotic weapon. If someone goes down the table of like maybe exotic weapons and they need to get that proficiency from somebody or something, but then that's the question. Do exotic weapons technically become martial weapons in the world, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I could see classes like Rogue or Cleric, like, I don't know if, I guess Ranger probably has all the proficiencies as well. I know those two classes at least are weapon capable and don't have all the proficiencies. So like, I could see a class like that making sense, but yeah, if you find a magic item and you're like, I can't use it effectively, and then how much are you really missing out by not adding your proficiency bonus? If it's that good of a magic item, like, it probably isn't going to hurt you to not get the feat to add +3 to it.
Yeah. I guess it could be good for a monk, maybe? Would it let them use that weapon for their monk weapons that way? I can't remember how that works.
That's a good question.
Dun, da, 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 quick to the page.
Yeah, otherwise, yeah, unless you need to be proficient with the weapon to proc like an ability.
Plus, in a way, doesn't that also step on the toes of the Kensei monk? because
Yeah, but no
like
one wants to play a Kensei.
Oh,
okay, fair
Kensei's
enough.
so bad.
Oh dear.
Basically, every like feature in the Kensei Monk is Weapon Master. That's
Hmm.
all it is. It's you get 3 more weapon proficiencies.
Oh boy. Oh yeah, fair enough. Jeez.
Looking at Monk, the weapons that qualify as monk weapons are short swords and any simple melee weapons that don't have the two-handed or heavy property. It doesn't say about any weapon you
Okay.
have proficiency.
Then never mind. This isn't useful for monks at all.
Oh boy. Also, I just want to give, before we pass on, one final shout out to the feat Tough.
Ah.
So good.
So good. You're
Yeah.
down on your HP, get Tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I will actually also mention one thing before we move on from like favorite and least favorite. You guys ever play around with those aberrant dragon mark ones?
Never had the chance.
Yeah, not particularly.
Like it depends whether your DM lets you use them outside of Eberron, but they're really good. just
Oh, I
putting it
bet.
out there. They're probably the best feats in the game.
Really?
Yeah, isn't there
So-
like a flaw associated with a particular mark?
Yeah, you do have flaws, but they're more flavor, I believe.
Okay.
Like
Yeah,
I can't remember
I-
exactly. I've played
So,
it once, but
we've got
it kind of is.
Sorry. Increase your
worries.
con score by 1. You learn a cantrip of your choice on the sorcerer list. In addition to a first level spell, you can cast it through the mark. Once you cast it, so basically, magic initiate for this so far. When you cast a first level spell through your mark, you can expend a hit dice and roll it. If you roll an even number, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to the number rolled. If you roll an odd number, one creature within 30 feet of you, not including you, takes force damage equal to the number rolled. If no one's in range, you take the damage. Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. Oh man, I think I barely read that one before we started the podcast. I'm like, oh my, that's very you always love that when they come up with that kind of content that especially also gives like that extra additional like storytelling. Like I absolutely love that if there's something to like bring out a flaw of a character or something that makes them have to like conceal this mark. Maybe it's something to the point of if you're in a town where they don't like magic or something and then they find that mark, it's like that could turn into a whole thing of itself.
Yeah.
It's wow. Just hearing Teni describe that, I'm like, okay, that's fun. It's scary, but it's fun.
It's also one that scales. There's an option for at 10th level, your mark kind of increases in power.
Right.
So, yeah, because these ones are very specific to the Eberron setting. If you've never played in Eberron, there's basically like different houses have different dragon marks, which kind of like give them skills at different things, allowing them to kind of dominate that part of culture or society. And there's a lot more to the marks in there. I think in like the Eberron source books, there's a much more expanded like dragon mark feat. But I haven't played around with it too much.
I need to read.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any final mentions before we move on?
Nope.
I cannot think of any other ones at this point in terms of other favorites. Yeah, I guess for anyone watching the video, be sure to comment about your favorite feat. And yeah, let's discuss about it in the Discord.
Engagement.
That's it. I retire. Cole, you've got this. That was well done. That was smart.
Like, comment, subscribe, damn it.
Share this podcast with your friends. Anyway. So, guys, is there a feat you've never taken but want to give a character?
Yeah. I want to take Crusher.
Oh, Crusher, yeah.
All right. What is this?
So Crusher is the damage type for bludgeoning, the bludgeoning feat. It's increase your strength or constitution by 1. And when I first read it and got very excited, I overlooked the part where it says once per turn. But once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack that deals bludgeoning damage, you can move it 5 feet to an unoccupied space, provided the target is no more than 1 size larger than you. And when you score a critical hit that deals bludgeoning damage to a creature, Attack rolls against that creature are made with advantage until the start of your next turn. So it just
Yeah.
lets you bully people by smacking them around.
Yeah, no, that's the bully feat. Like, that's full
Yeah.
on the bully feat.
Wow, that is funny.
Smack someone too hard with your club, and then everyone gets advantage. Like it's a fun one.
Oh, man. I think after you just mentioned that, I think in an upcoming campaign, I don't know if Ryan has told you about this, Denny, but one of our players is playing a Leonin rune fighter.
Nice.
And oh god, the personality is literally like a cross between oh god, what is the character's name from the Seven Deadly Sins anime? With the mustache, this Lion's and Pride.
Escanor.
Escanor, that's it. If anyone, it takes some time to listen to Escanor's whole like shtick when he goes powered up. It's terrifying, and essentially he's going down that path to take Crusher and Grappler, and literally just be like, I'm going to hold anyone in place that I want, and no one's going to stop me.
Yeah, Rune Knight's
Then he's just gonna go
fun.
No, I'm even bigger.
Oh my god.
I'm so excited for that. Anyway, getting back to the topic though about feats never taken but want to for a future character. Mine is Polearm Master. I've never taken that one and I want to. For those that don't know about it, Polearm is specifically for very specific weapons, such as a glaive, a halberd, or even a quarterstaff. When you take the attack action and attack with those weapons, you can use a bonus action to make a melee attack with the opposite end of the weapon, and that weapon die becomes a d4, and it deals bludgeoning damage. So not only do you get to hit someone with that part, you can also smack them again for fun. And while you're wielding those type of weapons, glaive, halberd, pike, or quarterstaff, other creatures provoke an opportunity attack from you when they enter your reach. So even if they think they're away from you, it's like, hey, you're within 10 feet. Bonk.
You can combine it with Crusher, and with that back end of the thing, can throw them 5 feet away from you, so they have to walk back into range again.
Oh, God.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's one for me at least. I'm sure there's probably another one somewhere, but that was the first one that came to mind because I've never used a polearm weapon for most of my characters when I definitely had the opportunity to, but I'm like, I'm already using a big sword, why not? You know? So that's where I defaulted to Great Weapon Master. But yeah, no, Polearm Master is definitely one for a future character. Don't know where I'll do it, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah, there's a dumb one I want to take, but I don't know when I'd ever use it, and it would be the single most situational feat. Has anyone ever taken Mounted Combatant?
Oh god. I have seen it in play. It is brutal. It is actually so good.
I've never had the chance to use it, but I've heard that if you're going for that type of character and doing that, it makes that type of character.
Just, when am I ever gonna find a time where I can ride around on my mount in most situations? That it would like the amount of times I fight in a big open field are so slim.
Yeah, the trick is you got to play like a halfling and have like a dog as your mount.
Yeah, that's true.
The Mastiff, yeah, you gotta have the big dog.
Yeah. The problem is the feat actually counteracts that. It's built to get around you being a smartass with your tiny mounts.
All right, what does this feat do?
Okay,
it says
mounted combatant.
Yeah, so you have advantage. Well, all these things apply only while you are mounted and aren't incapacitated. You gain the following benefits. You have advantage on melee attack rolls against any unmounted creature that is smaller than your mount.
Okay, there it is.
You can force an attack targeted at your mount to target you instead. If your mount is subjected to an effect that allows it to make a dexterity saving throw to take only half damage, it instead takes no damage if it succeeds on the saving throw, and only half damage if it fails.
Okay, so it gives the mount evasion, essentially.
Yeah, and there's a really fun and stupid combo you can do with another feat. You know the feat Inspiring Leader, I think it's called?
Oh, yes.
Yes, yes.
Friend Adrian has it in the one campaign, and it's so much fun. Just, you take 10 minutes to give like an inspiring speech to up to 6 people and give them temporary hit points based off, I think, your charisma modifier or something.
Yeah, your charisma mod, yeah.
But it's friendly creatures, so not just your party members.
Yeah.
So you can spend 10 minutes telling your mount how much of a good boy they are, and they'll get their
You're such a good boy.
yeah,
Who's
they'll
the
get some
bestest
temporary
boy?
hit points.
Wow.
I like that. Man, I never considered that. That's great.
Oh, keep
You can
that.
do it to familiars, you can do it to mounts, you can do it to party members. So
Like,
yeah.
I mean, if D&D thinks that the standard party size is 4 players, they must have been anticipating this. Like
Oh, yeah.
that's a great idea.
It
Wow.
takes the same amount of time as a ritual cast. So if someone's casting a ritual spell, why not take the time to just shore up anybody who hasn't got this benefit yet?
Oh,
Yeah.
I think it's only like once per short rest you can benefit from that.
Mm.
But you can use it as many times as you want. So if you're there with like a whole fleet of horses for some reason,
Oh yeah,
and you got an
talk
hour
to the
kill.
army. Yeah, that could be something for like a war style campaign. That would be, man, that would work so well.
wow.
Learning things every day.
Oh, I mean, this is why we do these, right? Because we keep realizing things we didn't realize were rules or combos. And the one I'm going to put forward that I've never used, but I want to give to a character, and I think this is a newer one, and I think would cover my. I have a general dislike of sorcerers and bards due to their known spell lists. This is, I'm sure, a commonly known thing for a lot of the people who are close to me and play D&D at this point. But the Meta Magic Adept feat would allow me to try being a sorcerer without having to choose being a sorcerer.
Oh yeah.
So
it gives you one of the meta magic types, if
you
I
learn
remember
2
right.
of the meta magic options.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh.
Yes. Okay.
Yep, you choose 2 of the meta magic options. You can use only 1 option per spell, as per usual. Whenever you reach a level that grants an ability score improvement, you can replace a meta magic with a different one. You gain 2 sorcery points to use on the meta magics. And these points are added to any sorcery points if you have. So that doesn't apply to me because I'm not playing a sorcerer. And you regain all of them when you finish a long rest.
Okay.
Oh, Matt, you looked like you were froze.
Oh no.
I was like, is he just sitting like really still?
Apparently.
And then you just snapped out of it.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's my choice.
Yeah, meta magic's super fun. So that makes sense.
And I mean, how great would it be to have the wizard spell list accessible to combo with a meta magic?
With meta magic. Oh, absolutely.
It's brutal. Just
that being said, though, with that feat, you only get the 2 sorcery points per long rest, right? And how many meta magic options really require like 1 or 2?
You know what? That's a good point. I don't remember.
A lot of the starting ones, like the lower ones, like
I'm pretty sure Quicken Spell is probably one of the ones that you probably definitely have to take, right?
Yeah, or the one that Subtle Spell I think is 1 point.
Yeah.
So
let's scroll down here to where are these? Quicken Spell uses both of them.
Okay.
The Extended Spell uses 1. Empowered Spell uses
extending
1.
the range, yeah.
Distant uses 1. Careful uses 1. Oh, so you could be an Evoker Wizard without having to choose Evokers, so that's great.
Oh, okay.
Subtle and... Wait a minute. You can... For Twin Spell, you can spend a number of sorcery points equal to the spell's level, so you can do it up to a 2nd level spell. Or 1 sorcery point if it's a cantrip.
Okay.
You can't do your haste 2 people option that the sorcerer can, but you still have some options.
Yeah, all those Tasha ones that give you like a scaled down version of a class feature are pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one I was talking about earlier where you get Battle Master dice, you get 2 maneuvers, but you only get 1 dice, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You can use it once per short rest.
Yeah.
But you got 2 options of what to use it on. So
yeah, this is the sorcerer's equivalent to the Battle Master, absolutely.
Yeah.
So are there any other mentions in this that you guys wanted to include?
Not immediately. I don't think so.
No.
I mean, there's also how many new feats that came out in some new source material. I think that's one to be like, okay, now I need to look at this list extensively and be like, yes, good, bad, why, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like
I've been
there are
thinking,
so many of these that I am less familiar with now. I really at some point should sit down and like get myself familiarized because I don't know what's out there anymore apparently.
last one I kind of want to take is Telekinetic because I've never taken that one. Just um, most of these I'm thinking in the context of my current character, who
Okay.
is the barbarian fighter mix.
Mm.
One of the big downsides to him right now is he lost an arm like
Oh
several sessions
gosh.
back, so he's been going one-handed for a while now. And I thought it
Okay.
would be funny if he was telekinetic and just had an invisible arm.
I mean, that's extremely cool. I like that.
That's a
Yeah.
great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, I guess then I ask you gentlemen this. Are there any flaws with the feat system, or do you have any house rules or know of any homebrew related to the feat system?
Yeah. Um, I think the biggest flaw we talked about pretty early on is the fact that you have to decide between a feat and your ability score improvement,
Mm.
and you're really limited on how many of those you get. So it's always like such a risk taking one like actor that's situational. Um, we actually have a pretty good homebrew kind of thing we're using for feats right now. Logan, who's playing in the Dicely campaign, he's the DM for this one. And the way we do feats is he's got a list of feats which are considered like very powerful feats, and those ones act as normal. They take the place of your um, ability score improvement to take those.
Right.
But for ones that are not on that list, you get both the ability score improvement and the feat. So if it's a feat that doesn't improve your ability scores at all, like I don't know, like actually let's use Tavern Brawler as an example for a feat for this. So Tavern Brawler would not be on the list because it's not an amazing feat. It's good, but it's not an amazing one. So in it, it says it increases your strength or con score by 1. So you'd get that increase, but then you'd also get the other +1 to make it equal to an ability score increase,
Right.
and you'd also get the rest of the feat. So we do it that way, so it really gives you a chance to take some of those more situational ones without losing the ability to also get that stat increase.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a good system. I like that. Um, for my current games, for the one that we're in, my friend Alan is running the campaign, and basically what he's allowed us to do because on his homebrewed world, since there's a lot of travel time and downtime, he's come up with this system where I believe it's based on the number of ability score improvements you've had. You can take downtime up to a number of work weeks, and based on your intelligence modifier, to help you learn a new feat. And like it's interesting for us because our characters probably have like at least 2 or 3 feats individually now, not including the fact that we started with human variant to allow us to just start with a feat. So it's more so if we want to put the time in. I think it's just the balance of as long as you reach this point where you could have earned a feat, then you can work to one in your downtime. So if you would choose in that instant to take the ability score improvement, if you find like someone in the world to help teach you this thing, then you can start learning and work progressively to get the feat that you want. And one that's I'm in the process of getting right now is Warcaster for my Eldritch Knight. So it'll be very helpful at that point.
I mean,
But it's interesting how it's balanced on the whole thing of how smart your character is can influence how short of a duration it would take to learn the feat. I'm curious what your thoughts would be about that, Teni.
yeah, I mean, like, I'm immediately like, I've already got gripes with like some of the options of like learning skills or languages and things like that, where like it says proficiencies in languages are the ones that have official rules. Where it's like it's going to take so many days and so much gold, and usually it's like more than a year to learn something. And it's like, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know how many of my games actually spend a year time. Like there was our pirate campaign, which took like months of travel between locations, which yeah, it would make sense in a game like that. But I don't find a party really likes to settle down for a huge amount of time, especially if there's some sort of villainous plot going on in the background, or there's just a pressure to constantly keep going. And I feel like this kind of thing just feels hard to do. That's probably the best way to put it. Definitely doable, but hard to do in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it works really well when you've got like a low stakes campaign. Like I did one where we used those kind of rules where our characters were essentially employed by a university to go out and do research for them, or like acquire objects or do tasks. So we had a lot of downtime in between the missions we were sent on. Since it wasn't like a high stakes, like, oh, you're saving the world every third day, or like there's a big looming presence. We had the downtime to do that kind of stuff, which worked pretty well. But yeah, it doesn't work for every game scenario.
Yeah, no, it's full agreement. Like, it's very interesting for our current campaign because it is open world and we do have like tasks to do, but it's more so that since there's travel time involved, and basically each hex equals however many miles, and we can only travel so many miles in one day. It's more so, at least in that downtime, that it can progress towards something. So, in that kind of sense, it definitely works. But I would say for some of the other campaigns that we've been in where it's constant plot, constant motion, there would be no chance to do this kind of thing. So that's when it's just you either rely on taking the ASI or the feat. So, yeah, I guess back with what we're talking about, though, with the flaws in the feat system, it is down to whether it depends on the character you play, because if you go down a path where you only have, I don't know, I think it's the fighter that has how many ASIs, like 7 or 8?
Oh yeah, they get a lot.
Yeah, because I think normally a class gets 5 or 6, and then they get like 6 or 7 or 8. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, either way, like especially if you're depending on the way that you roll your character's stats, or if you take what is it, the standard array or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
If you have things that you want to improve, especially if you're a class that can do multiple things, and say you've already rolled high for your strength or your dex, so you're already competent as that type of fighter, but then you want to boost your spellcasting ability, like, you have to really choose, and like, because you're only going to get those ability score improvements that however many times. So in a way, it's a good balancing system, but maybe that's the flaw of it, because then if someone wants to add this to their character, but if there's no chance for them to do so, then they're kind of missing out on doing something that may be really cool for their character to do.
And yeah, I mean, the opportunity, if we could, like, players would love to take both the ability score improvement and the feat. And I think, like, Matt, like you were saying, Logan's way of doing it, like classifying feats as like super powerful on their own or can use a boost, I think that's a great system. I love your guys' system of learning feats. I think it's fun if your campaign fits that. My gripe comes in the form of how multi-classing interacts with the feat system. Because, you know, when you start multi-classing, then you have to get to level 4 of class A and then level 4 of class B in order to get the same equivalent rate, I suppose, as all the other characters who are sticking to one class. If I were to have my like dreams come true, I think it would be kind of like how they use proficiency bonuses instead. You know, it's based on your character level instead. Like level, I think it's like, well, level 1 to 4, your ability score is proficiency bonus is +2. Level 5 it becomes +3. I would treat, again, this is all my dream scenario, I would treat feats the same way. You know, you, regardless of how you've multi-classed, you would get a feat at level 4, level 8, I think it's level 12, 16, and 19, I think it's something like that breakdown.
So, yeah.
But because there are classes that get additional feats, I would combat that with, you follow the feat trajectory or the feat number equal to the class that you are highest leveled in. So it's like if you're a cleric cleric fighter, for example, and you go like 5 levels cleric and 1 level fighter, that way it prevents people from like dipping into a fighter multi-class to get those extra feats.
Right.
Unless they started off as fighter and kept going more fighter than cleric.
Yeah. Yeah, multi-class is a weird one because when you dip in for just like a couple levels in something, it's kind of like you're taking feats because you're just grabbing a couple abilities from a different class's list. But like, yeah, it's weird. It's a weird balancing mechanic.
Yeah,
for sure.
Multi-class starts strong and gets
in an analogy, I guess you could imagine it like, say, like a stockbroker that knows the system, you know, and they're going to shift some money around in terms of going in one class or another. It's like, I'm going to get the most bang for my buck here. It's like, wait, hold on. Are you able to do this? It's a very interesting point about the multi-classing. Didn't consider that.
And I suppose that comes from me, who is like, almost every single one of my characters, I tend to multi-class because I usually multi-class when it like makes story sense. And I have not yet played a character that has made story sense to be one class the entire time.
Yeah. I've been multi-classing a lot more as well.
Yeah.
I
mean, it makes sense for you, Matt. I know you love combos and just multi-class, and it's some great stuff you could do.
Yeah, it does give me some huge downsides. Like, I'm a level 7 fighter barbarian who doesn't have a multi-attack yet. But we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In that case, that'll be just, you know, level progression. I think the thing, like, I don't know if this has been talked about on the multi-class episode, or if
we haven't
have done
had
a
one yet.
One. Okay, then that'll be for the next topic, because it's down to, I find with that, just briefly as we're on this topic, multi-classing, especially if you think that you're not going to benefit from the final, like, 20th level ability of a character. Like, I ran into that situation with my ranger when I was playing in Ryan, or the Fantastic Fiends campaign in his world. I was reaching the end of the Monster Slayer, what is it called? The Ranger, and the 20th level ability just didn't suit me, especially with the situation that we were about to deal with. So that's when I'm like, okay, I'm going to multi-class into fighter, get myself give myself the ability to action surge. Because that helped me more in that situation. So, but tying it all in a nice bow, I guess, if you can justify sticking in the class tree, I guess you could call it, of the character that you're going to make, maybe take some time to look over the path that you're going to follow and see if Feats may really help you in future endeavors.
Yeah.
Well said. Are there any final notes you guys would like to offer on any of the topics we've covered, or anything you just want to add on the topic of feats?
Nothing that I can immediately think of. Matt, do you have anything?
No. I'd just say, kind of look over feats before you really make your character. Because sometimes, like, you could be like, man, I don't know what class I want to be because I want this ability and this ability, which I do. And you're like, oh, there's a feat that gives me basically that. So, like, story-wise, I don't have to multi-class. I can just take a feat at level 4. Like, it's worth looking them over when planning out your character progression or your character's arc.
Yeah.
Because they can really help, like, with flavor on that a lot of the time. So, just give them a look over. Don't forget about them.
I mean, looking them over could very well even just inspire an entire character idea. Like,
oh yeah,
you'd be like, oh, I want to get that feat at some point because that sounds like it would be amazing to do. So where should I start? Okay, let's start at this class. Once I get to level 4, that's where I get the feat. And then shit's gonna get cray.
Yeah. Like, I've been looking at Crusher and just getting inspired for dumb shit I can do with that. Fun
Building
fact.
A character built off of a feat. It's interesting. I've never done that, so that might be something down the road. That'd be fun. Like, we've talked about Mounted Combatant, and I'm like, I actually want to do a Mounted Combatant thing at some point. Isn't there specifically a fighter, the Cavalier?
Cavalier, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So that's something down the road. I haven't played enough fighters in my life, so there we go.
Yeah. How about this? That Crusher thing. I'm just gonna go back to that one more time.
Yeah.
You don't have to actually do damage with the, like, hit. You also don't have to make any contested check, I don't believe, for that movement. Let me quickly double check that before I start
Let's
spouting
just fact check
nonsense.
that. We fact check on this show.
Once per turn, when you hit a creature
sometimes.
with an attack that deals bludgeoning damage, you can move it 5 feet to an unoccupied space, providing the target is no more than one size larger than you. Cool.
Okay.
So there is no limit to that. You, as a 0 strength person, can walk up to a guard blocking your path, slap them, and they will fly 5 feet to the right as you walk past them. Like, it's ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
That alone, just that delivery of that's fantastic.
Do you want to knock a guy off his horse? You can do it. Just go up and gently push him.
Oh no. Ah!
minimum. Yeah, you gotta be able, you gotta deal bludgeoning damage, but yeah, absolutely. That's funny.
It just says when you hit a creature with an attack that deals bludgeoning damage.
So that kind of assumes that you're, wait a minute.
You could slap a werewolf and they'd move. Like,
Yeah,
But that would do a
your
minimum
fist.
of 1 damage, right?
yeah, unless they're immune to the damage
should,
type.
unless, well, yeah.
You know what?
Uh-oh.
That,
Mm.
that right there. That right there. Well, we just throwing werewolves around knowing they're not getting hurt just for the fun of it. What a scene you've made.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah, I just got my bag of werewolves right over here. We got some testing to do. Fire up the lab, boys.
Fire up the werewolves. Oh, wow.
Release the hounds.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you both for joining me on this conversation of feats. This is great. I mean, I got a lot out of this, a lot of ideas. Very inspiring.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having us.
I love just theory crafting with stuff.
Yeah. Oh, theory crafting is great. But we're not quite done yet. We still have one more segment here. This now is Question Dicely, our chance to hear from the listeners. And today's question was submitted by Peter on the Dicely DnD Discord server. So, hey, if you want to submit more questions, go submit them on the server. Come hang out with us on the Discord. Link is in the show notes or the description wherever you're listening or watching to this podcast. But let me get to this question here. So, what Peter wants to know is, how important is character alignment? How do you handle a player that acts against their alignment? For example, a lawful good character stealing a pouch of gold from a town mayor.
Interesting question, Peter. I like how you're tackling one of the I guess you want to call this like the typical like tavern debate when it comes to this game about alignment. Mm-hmm. Because I would say it depends on how the dungeon master wants to carry alignment and how important it is to them in their setting and for characters, because I guess with handling players that act against their alignment, truly you shouldn't punish someone to the point of if they have to do, like, I'm pretty sure a case in point example, you could play a lawful good character but they could be poor and they have to steal food to survive. Like, they did a bad thing for a good reason, and they may even accept a prison sentence for doing what they did. It literally turns into the musical of Les Mis, I guess. But I guess in terms of, I guess that's maybe a question to the other gentleman here about if someone starts to act farther away from their original alignments, would you start to see if they start to change in a certain direction? Because that's, I guess, a question that I would pose in return.
Yeah. I always viewed alignment as like a baseline kind of thing, because there are mechanics in the game that apply to alignments. So I've always like viewed that your characters need to have it, but I'd never stop someone who's like, if your lawful good person steals a loaf of bread, I'm not going to be like, all right, change your character sheet to chaotic neutral now because you did that one thing.
Yeah.
It's like, I've always thought about it, like, you know, the Simpsons episode, or like, where he's got like the picture of Maggie above his like workstation. It's like, do it for her. That's kind of what I view like alignment as. Like, hey, I'm doing some stuff. What am I doing again? I look up and just see my lawful neutral. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how I'd act.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a guideline more than anything else.
Yeah.
That said, there are some mechanical points to it. If you have a character who says they're lawful neutral, but they just kill people randomly for no reason, I'd tell them to change it on their sheet, just so that down the road, like, if something were to happen to them, like,
yeah,
Matt, you stole those words directly. Like, that is pretty much exactly what I was going to say. You know, like I think that's what alignment is. It's just something that players can look toward to be like, how should I how have I conceptualized this character to behave again? Oh, okay. There's this code of typical things for this type of behavior, and I guess I can refer back to that to get a sense of who my character is. But I've never thought, when it comes to like acting against alignment, if it's like a one-time thing, for example, like people are spontaneous and people are hypocritical, and I think acting against one's alignment on occasion is great roleplay and also can present some great conflict. Like, for example, if the paladin is present for that torture session because they just desperately needed information, and like stereotypically we'd have said like the lawful good paladin's like, no, we can't do this, but instead we have a lawful good paladin stand by and then later on has internal grief at being like, is there a way we could have done that differently? I need to talk to these guys about this. Like, is this the type of people we are? Like, there is great roleplay in allowing fighting against what you are labeled as. But yeah, I also agree with Matt. There are certain mechanical things that do require alignment, so just stamp something on, and if it doesn't make sense, we'll switch it later.
I've actually had that paladin issue where I played a lawful good. This was back in 4th edition. He was basically an Eldritch Knight, but I think a spell sword was the term. But we had a captured goblin where I made a deal. I'm like, all right, if you tell me the truth, we won't torture you or kill you or anything. And he held up his end of the deal. But I was with a party of murder hobos. Yes. Like, we're not going to let this goblin go. So I literally am like, all right, my guy's lawful good, but he knows what's going to happen anyway. So what he did, he's like, all right, you've held up your end of the deal. I'll leave my friends to release you. I'm going to go wait outside for them to do it. So he just stepped out of the way, and he, like, willful ignorance there.
Yes.
Yeah.
For him, it was still like he had to do the thing. He didn't
follow your code.
But yeah. I've also I use alignment a bit. So I'll usually pick the alignment first before going through like my background. So, you know, like picking your ideals, your bonds, there's always those like suggested ones.
Yeah.
I find using an alignment to kind of help me gear towards what my character might be, using those is helpful. Because there are some that like list in them like, this thing is an evil trait, or this is a neutral trait. So like I can kind of be like, all right, I want a guy who's lawful neutral. What does that entail? Let's look through what they suggest for a neutral character or for a evil character or that. And kind of like helps me build their personality that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely adds like some consistency with like what that type of character would be. And in terms of like Matt, I think you got the right answer for like how do you handle a character acting against their alignment? Like there should never be like any punishing people for being the way they are. Just kind of like notifying them it's like your behavior is not what you think it is. Yeah. So for the mechanics, we're going to change you to this unless you start consistently being the other way. Like I don't think alignment should be a level 1 to 20 thing. It can probably change.
Yep.
A big thing for my other note about it is like I'm pretty sure I've seen like all the Reddit threads in the world talking about how like if you allow your alignment to literally dictate your character for you instead of, you know, playing like a person, like Teni, you hit the nail on the head. People like may have this belief, but then they act an entirely different way. You could have someone that's I'm pretty sure I just saw a recent example for like a bugbear that was a player character, and they would constantly get in fights and get in trouble with the law, and in turn they would have to go but they found religion and they found this whole thing, and like they're not a bad person for the things that they went through, and that doesn't mean in turn that this character is going to be, no, you are by the decree of the mighty DM, you are now lawful evil or chaotic evil because what you did defines who you are. Like it's more fluid than that. It's not like someone's going to, you know, put this label on your head and it's like, this is what I am now, you know?
Yeah.
You are your own person, and your character is like a reflection of yourself. So how the way you play it allows you to go through those struggles that you may not already go through, and having like those role play moments, it's gold.
And like DMs, what you can do is just like if a player is being consistent with their roleplay, inspiration. That's always our subtle way to just be like, player, you're doing a good job with your roleplay. Have some inspiration. Have some lucky feat -2.
Yeah.
Also, as a DM, don't let your character hide behind their alignment. Like, I don't have a good example of this because my people I play with don't do this very often, but where like they'll do whatever they want to be like, but my alignment is this, so I'm justified in doing this shitty thing. I'm like,
Oh, God.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's always that it's what my character would do. That's an asshole
That's
answer.
the word. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
If anybody ever says like in that kind of way, like that's what my character would do, no, the player is being a dick.
Yeah.
And that's a after the session, like, all right, we gotta talk, like what you're doing is unacceptable. And
Exactly.
For sure. And yeah, I guess that just kind of comes back to like, the improv yes and kind of thing. It's like, ask yourself, why would my character go along with this? And find the way to say yes, because if you say no while everyone else says yes, the game stops.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Or at least say yes for now.
Mm-hmm. I hope that answered your question, Peter. Nothing like talking about these kind of topics. Since like, yeah, I mean, it's surprising that there are the bad apples out there, but that allows us to talk about that and be like, yeah, maybe don't do that thing.
Yeah, I mean, there are people of all kinds. Like, there are players of all alignments just as well. So,
yeah, I had actually I had a debate with a DM once about my alignment because of a plan I suggested in combat.
Oh.
Like about your character alignment or about you Matt alignment?
About my character alignment, whether he would actually do this or not. Because we had one, it was in an Ebron game, and the dumbest thing, we are in Drome, which is a monster area, and we made friends with a werebear. So, since we were already lawful good characters, we got bit by the werebear, giving us some of us who were neutral good at this allowed ourselves to get the curse from the werebear to become more powerful. Because unlike most other werewolves, where when you transform or when you get bitten, they turn you evil, werebears turn you lawful good. So our characters at that point, most of our party, whoever agreed to this, became a lawful good character. And we got to an issue where we were in a town at the edge of a border where a war was about to break out. Some of the townsfolk wanted to stay in the town and help their people fight off the invaders, and some of them who were from the invading territory wanted to go back. The town was originally going to kill all these people, and just to because they're all traitors. Our party intervened, and we convinced them to let people decide. If they wanted to stay and fight, they'd stay and fight. If they didn't, they could leave. And basically, the group that left, my character went to one of his subordinates and told him to, once they were out of town, kill those people. We can't let them go with the information they have to the enemy. The DM says, like, you're lawful good, you wouldn't kill innocent people. And we kind of got into the debate of, he thought it was the good thing to do because he was saving all the lives of the people in this town by eliminating those people, like a greater good kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's one of the few times I've ever gotten into a debate about alignment, was with that scenario where, yeah, I guess technically from a lawful good standpoint, he's killing civilians, but he's stepping outside of that a bit to protect all the civilians in this town. So it's, do 5 people die or 500 people die? Like that kind of mindset. That's an interesting talk.
That is an interesting debate. Firstly, I want to add, there's been the big trend of like all the monsters in D&D are getting reskinned with like typically this alignment, that kind of thing. So that's great. Werebears, the second thing I want to add. I think the evil ones make sense because it's like folklore. It's like, oh, you transform unwillingly into this evil monster. Werebears seem to be more of a willing thing. So it's like, why wouldn't you just be able to keep your own alignment? Because everybody does it anyway. And then the third thing I would say on that is that sounds like a lawful neutral plan to me.
Yeah, I mean, that was my original alignment before the shift.
And
So.
I would say, why wouldn't you retain your alignment? So, werebears. Yeah, it's like, how do you... A forced alignment change is so hard to deal with, especially when you started playing as one character type, and then you're like, unless you're being charmed or something, it's like, you must now remake your personality to match this new alignment. It's like, that's rough. I wanted to play this guy.
And like, your characters in story are put under a lot of stress in scenarios they're in. So it would make sense that sometimes they would step outside of what they normally would do under a stressful situation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, so food for thought.
Thank you, Matt, for bringing up that that story. That was what a very interesting debate to get into.
Yeah, it was a really cool campaign we had.
Sounds like there were a lot of bears in this campaign, weren't there?
Yeah, if you've talked with Adrian yet about Rangers, I don't know when that one's coming out.
This will be the next one, so I'm going to save that right there. So I'm just going to cut that right here and just go, hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on the Speak Dicely podcast. And that brings us to yet the end of another episode, and I'd like to give my guests the chance to plug any projects you guys are working on and your social media. Where can people keep up with you?
In terms of other projects for myself...
could I get you a little closer to your microphone there, Cole?
Oh, terribly sorry. There we go. Let's do that again. So, in terms of current projects, currently nothing right now, but if you want to check out my actor website, you can find me at www.colelarson.ca, or you can check me out on my Twitter and my Instagram for Colossus_gaming, zeros instead of O's, because there already is a Colossus Gaming, but he already had all of the normal letters, so... you could go check out that guy. I don't know what he's doing, but either way, if you want to check out my stuff, I'm pretty sure it's Colossus_gaming on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find me at the Cole Larson on Facebook.
All the links will be in the show notes and the description of this video. And Matt, what are you up to, and where can people keep up with you?
Well, I don't really have much of a social media presence, so you could try and find me if you want, but there's nothing interesting there. Outside of projects, although I'm not currently working on it at the moment, I do have groupchatgames.ca where I make virtual murder mysteries, so murder mystery games that can be played over video chat. I've had to put a pause on that recently due to work, but yeah, there's still some products up there if you're interested. Otherwise, yeah, I'm not working on too much right now.
Well, that's great. Folks, be sure to follow these guys. They're great friends. Love talking D&D with these guys. Thank you for joining me. And I suppose I better plug some of my own stuff now. So,
yeah,
everybody out there, if you'd like to keep up with the Speak Dicely podcast, I learn how to speak. Acting, using my mouth. All right, let's
tip of
try.
The tongue, the teeth, and the lips.
That's right. Enunciation. I'm going to try that again. If you'd like to keep up with Speak Dicely, follow my social media. You can find me at Dicely DnD on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and recently on TikTok, where I've been having a lot of fun creating funny little tidbits, as well as including some stuff from the Play Dicely campaign and the intro series from the YouTube channel. And if you'd like to submit a question for the podcast, you can send that through email to dicelychannel@gmail.com or join us on the Discord server. It's Dicely DnD. You can find the links in the show notes, as I previously mentioned, and you can submit questions to me through the Question Dicely text channel there. Thank you both, Matt and Cole, for joining me today. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Absolute pleasure. Can't wait to do it again.
Oh, for sure. And you will be back. I am sure of it. And thank you all listeners for tuning in. My name is Denny, and I will speak Dicely with you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
This episode of the Speak Dicely podcast was produced and edited by myself, Teni Brant, and the intro and outro music were created by Salik Brant. Thank you for the support, and we'll see you next time on the Speak Dicely podcast.